You know that quiet, chilling moment right before a storm finally breaks? The air just gets heavy. That is exactly what happens the second a narcissist realizes they chose the wrong target. They thought they had you completely broken, shattered, and ready to submit. But today, we are going to explore the precise second their entire illusion shatters instead. Stick around to find out how. You gave them everything, didn't you? Your patience, empathy, and your endless willingness to understand their bad behavior. They drank it up like water, convinced your kindness was just a symptom of weakness. They truly believed you would keep bending backwards until your spirit finally snapped. But they profoundly underestimated exactly who you are at your absolute deepest, most resilient core. It starts to happen in the quiet moments. They throw out their usual bait, fully expecting you to bite and react with that familiar, desperate emotion. They want the tears, the apologies, the frantic need to fix a problem you never even created. That was the script they wrote for you. But suddenly you stop reading their lines. You look at them with a blank, terrifyingly calm expression. They panic. It is subtle at first, just a slight widening of their eyes or a sudden shift in their tone. They are so incredibly used to being the director of this tragic movie, pulling every single string to make you dance. When you stop dancing, their entire reality starts to glitch. They push harder, trying to provoke you, trying to find that old button they used to press with total ease. But the button is gone. The wiring has been completely ripped out. You are sitting across from them, and for the very first time, you are truly seeing them without the thick fog of trauma bonding. It is a profoundly jarring experience for both of you. You see a small, terrified person hiding behind a massive mask. And they look into your eyes and realize their favorite mirror is totally broken. They thought you were just another supply source, an emotional battery they could drain and discard whenever they felt like it. Narcissists always hunt for people with deep reserves of light, precisely because they live in pitch darkness. They saw your light and wanted to consume it entirely. But they forgot one crucial detail about people like you. Your light is not just warm. It can burn. Think about the sheer arrogance it takes to look at a genuinely good person and see only a toy to be played with. That arrogance is their ultimate downfall. They mistake your quiet endurance for permanent submission. They think your capacity to forgive means you lack the capacity to walk away. They could not be more wrong. The patience of a good person always has a hard, impenetrable limit. When you finally hit that limit, something inside you permanently shifts. The anxiety that used to choke you is suddenly replaced by a strange, icy clarity. It feels less like anger and much more like finality. You are no longer trying to decode their confusing messages or figure out what you did wrong. The devastating truth lands. You did nothing wrong. You were just dealing with a predator. That realization is the very foundation of their absolute worst nightmare. They rely heavily on your confusion to maintain their illusion of absolute power. As long as you are questioning your own sanity, they are safe from any real scrutiny. But the moment the fog clears from your mind, their power vanishes into thin air. They are suddenly completely exposed, standing naked in the harsh light. And they feel it happening. Oh, they feel it deep in their bones. The narcissist has a sixth sense for when their control is slipping away. It is like a parasite realizing the host organism is suddenly rejecting it. They start scrambling, rapidly cycling through all their old tactics to see if anything still works. But it is entirely too late. The invisible chain around your neck has shattered. Let's really look at what is happening inside their mind during this exact phase. A narcissist does not have a solid, defined sense of self. They are basically an emotional black hole, desperately trying to pull in validation from the outside world to fill an infinite void. When you stop providing that validation, it is not just an insult to them. It feels like an actual threat to their survival. To understand them, you have to understand their desperate need for superiority. They always need to feel like the smartest, most powerful person in the room. They achieved this with you by constantly tearing you down, chipping away at your self-esteem until you felt entirely dependent on their approval. It was a calculated, daily robbery of your soul. But a robbery only works if the victim stays. When you suddenly detach, their whole psychological framework collapses. They cannot process the idea that someone they viewed as inferior could reject them. It creates a massive cognitive dissonance in their brain. To protect their fragile ego, they have to rewrite reality immediately. They will convince themselves that you are crazy, unstable, or deeply abusive. Anything to avoid the real truth. But deep down, beneath the layers of delusion, a tiny sliver of reality pierces through. They know they pushed you too far. They know they took your bottomless grace completely for granted. This is the secret knowledge they will absolutely never admit out loud, not even to a therapist. They recognize the exact moment they broke the absolute best thing that ever happened to their miserable life. It is fascinating to watch the frantic mental gymnastics they perform. One minute they are raging at you, trying to intimidate you back into submission. The next minute, they are crying, playing the ultimate victim, begging for your pity. This rapid cycling is called narcissistic collapse. It happens when their false self is severely threatened, and they have no alternative supply to lean on. You have to remember that they selected you for a specific reason. You possess the traits they deeply lack and secretly envy. Your empathy, your warmth, your ability to connect authentically. They wanted to wear your beautiful qualities like a costume. But by trying to destroy the very source of those qualities, they ruined their own disguise. Now, they are left with nothing but their own emptiness. They never anticipated your resilience. In their rigid, pathological worldview, people are just objects. An object cannot simply decide to grow a spine and walk away. A chair doesn't refuse to be sat on. So when you suddenly stand up and refuse to play the game, it genuinely breaks their brain. They are staring at a person who has magically transformed from a reliable appliance into a solid wall. This realization brings out a deeply pathetic side of their personality. The mask of the confident, charming, untouchable god melts away completely. What is left underneath is a severely stunted toddler throwing a desperate tantrum because their favorite toy was taken away. It is not love they are grieving. It is the absolute loss of control. They miss the power they had over your heart, not you. They will try to project their internal chaos onto you. They want you to feel the agonizing emptiness that they live with every single day of their lives. If they can make you feel worthless, then they briefly feel a fleeting sense of value. It is a sickening transaction. But when your emotional borders are finally closed, their toxic shipments just pile up at the gate, slowly poisoning them instead. This is the exact psychological trap they built for themselves. They thought they were the grand architect of your permanent destruction. They spent months, maybe years, slowly tightening the screws. But they completely failed to realize that the pressure they were applying was actually turning a piece of coal into an indestructible diamond. They manufactured the exact strength that ultimately defeated them. The actual moment it happens is almost cinematic. It might happen during an argument that feels identical to 100 previous arguments. They are screaming, gaslighting, twisting reality into knots. Normally, this is the exact moment you would break down and desperately apologize just to make the chaos stop. But this time, something is different. The air in the room just goes completely dead. You really look at them. Not with love, not with fear, and surprisingly, not even with anger. You look at them with pure, unadulterated apathy. That is the silver bullet. A narcissist can easily feed on your anger, they can thrive on your sadness, but your total indifference starves them to death instantly. The silence that follows your realization is absolutely the loudest sound in the entire world. They feel the shift immediately. It is palpable, like a sudden drop in barometric pressure. They say something brutally cruel, waiting for your shoulders to slump. But your posture remains perfectly straight. You don't defend yourself. You don't try to explain your side of the story. You simply let their toxic words hang there in the empty air, exposing how utterly ridiculous they truly sound. That is when the true panic finally sets in for them. They will immediately try to escalate the situation. If a small insult didn't work, they will drop a massive emotional bomb. They will bring up your deepest insecurities, secrets you shared in strict confidence. They are desperately trying to draw blood. But you are wearing emotional armor now. Their sharpest daggers just bounce right off the metal. When the rage fails to move you, the performance dramatically changes. Suddenly, the monster vanishes, and the poor, misunderstood victim appears. The tears start flowing. The fake apologies pour out, promising immediate, radical change. They will use the exact words you have been begging to hear for years. But you listen to this desperate performance, and you realize something incredibly chilling. It is completely hollow. There is absolutely no soul behind their tearful eyes. You suddenly realize that everything they are doing is just a highly calculated biological response to losing control. They do not feel genuine remorse for hurting you. They are only deeply sorry that their favorite toy is suddenly walking out the door. It is a stunning, horrific moment of ultimate, crystal-clear clarity. You finally see the full extent of the con. The person you loved deeply never actually existed. They were just a meticulously crafted hologram designed to perfectly mirror your deepest desires. And now, the projector is broken, and you are just staring at a deeply damaged stranger. The grief of that moment is profoundly heavy, but it is instantly followed by the most immense, liberating sense of freedom. They are intensely watching your face, desperately searching for any sign of hesitation. They are waiting for you to crack, to reach out and comfort them just like you always did. But you don't move a single muscle. You simply let them sit in the incredibly uncomfortable reality of their own devastating actions. You are no longer their emotional sponge. You refuse to absorb their toxic poison anymore. This is the exact second they realize they messed with the absolutely wrong person. They thought they had chosen a fragile victim, someone weak who would silently tolerate endless abuse. But they accidentally awakened a sleeping giant. The intense pain they inflicted on you didn't destroy your spirit. It served as a massive catalyst, burning away all your illusions and forging your boundaries out of iron. They realize that they can never, ever go back. The bridge is not just burned, the entire foundation has been blasted into dust. They look at you and see a terrifyingly strong person who knows all of their darkest, most pathetic secrets. You see right through the mask, and you are totally unafraid. The predator has suddenly realized that the prey just walked out of the cage and locked them inside. So what happens next? The aftermath of this realization is incredibly brutal for the narcissist. When they finally accept that you are truly gone, the total collapse begins. They cannot sit alone with their thoughts, because their internal world is an absolute nightmare of shame and deep self-loathing. They immediately rush out to find new supply, a shiny new distraction to plug the massive, bleeding hole. But it is never quite the same. They will always remember the exact one who got away. The one who saw completely through the grand illusion and refused to play along. You become the terrifying benchmark of their ultimate failure. No matter how many new victims they manage to successfully fool, your silent rejection will always haunt the deep, dark corners of their incredibly fractured, deeply miserable mind. They will launch a frantic smear campaign. They have to violently attack your reputation to protect their own completely fabricated image. They will tell mutual friends that you were the crazy one, the abusive one, the one who ruined everything. It is incredibly painful to watch people believe their lies. But you must understand this crucial truth. The smear campaign is actually a confession of their terror. They are absolutely terrified of your truth. They know that you hold the ultimate power to expose them completely. So they strike first, desperately trying to discredit your voice before you can ever speak. But their frantic, chaotic energy always betrays them eventually. Real friends will eventually see through the frantic performance. The truth has a quiet, steady power that lies can never truly defeat. Meanwhile, they are stuck replaying the final moments. Narcissists have an incredibly vindictive memory, but they also severely torture themselves. They will obsessively review the exact moment they pushed too far. They won't feel guilt for hurting you, but they will feel endless, agonizing regret for losing their incredibly valuable possession. It is an extremely miserable, profoundly empty way to exist. Think about the heavy burden of having to constantly pretend you are perfectly fine. They have to wear that exhausting mask everywhere they go, absolutely terrified that someone else will eventually figure out what you already know. You walked away cleanly, with your genuine soul completely intact. They are deeply trapped inside a terrifying psychological prison of their own making, and there is no real escape. As time passes, the devastating consequences of their extremely toxic behavior continue to violently compound. They ruin relationship after relationship, burning every single bridge until they are standing completely alone on an isolated island of their own creation. The temporary thrill of a brand new victim inevitably fades rapidly, leaving them totally face to face with the terrifying, dark void inside. They will definitely try to check up on you. They will stalk your social media, looking for any tiny sign that you are struggling without them. They desperately want to see that you are absolutely miserable, because it would validate their deeply inflated sense of importance. But what they actually find completely ruins them. They see you genuinely healing, slowly rebuilding, and truly thriving without them. Your silent success is the absolute ultimate revenge. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were the heavy anchor dragging you down, not the wind beneath your wings. Every genuine smile you share, every new boundary you firmly set, is a massive psychological blow to their extremely fragile ego. They tried to permanently bury you deep in the dirt, but they didn't realize you were actually a vital seed. They broke the entirely wrong person because they assumed your deep kindness meant you were completely foolish. They fatally confused your beautiful empathy with extreme weakness. But true empathy requires massive strength. It takes immense emotional fortitude to keep your heart totally open in a world full of broken, incredibly sharp edges. You survived their absolute worst, and you walked out truly victorious. Now, let us bring this completely back to you. The journey out of that intense darkness was not easy. There were definitely nights when you cried until you simply could not breathe. There were confusing moments when you genuinely almost gave in and called them, desperate for the familiar, comfortable pain of their toxic presence. Healing from this specific type of intense emotional trauma is an absolute battlefield. But you chose to stay in the painful reality rather than return to a comfortable fantasy. That is the definition of true bravery. You slowly packed up the shattered pieces of your deeply broken heart and decided that you truly deserved much better. You stopped accepting tiny, pathetic crumbs of fake affection and finally learned to deeply value your peaceful space. You strictly protected your own precious energy. The scars you carry are deeply real. You might still flinch when a person raises their voice, or intensely second-guess your totally valid reality. The devastating damage they did left deep, lasting marks on your beautiful soul. But those scars are absolutely not badges of shame. They are undeniable proof of life. They boldly show the world that you faced an emotional predator and successfully survived the brutal attack. You are no longer the deeply naive, overly trusting person who initially walked into their trap. That older version of you had to completely die so this new, fiercely protective version could fully emerge. You now possess a highly developed radar for toxic manipulation. You can effortlessly spot a deeply fake smile from a mile away. Your personal boundaries are finally firmly established and totally non-negotiable. This deeply painful experience, as utterly horrific as it felt, was a profound masterclass in extreme self-discovery. The narcissist inadvertently taught you exactly what you will never tolerate again. They forcefully showed you the absolute darkest side of raw humanity, and in doing so, they deeply clarified the immense value of your own beautiful light. They were simply a deeply painful but highly necessary life lesson. Do not let anyone rush your personal healing process. Some days you will feel completely empowered, and other days you might feel incredibly sad. Both states are a normal part of this extremely complex journey. Give yourself the immense, unconditional grace that you endlessly poured into that ungrateful black hole of a person. You profoundly deserve to finally experience your own profound, intensely beautiful love today. You are part of an incredibly strong army of resilient survivors. Millions of beautiful people have walked through this exact same terrifying psychological fire and emerged completely transformed. You are definitely not crazy, you are absolutely not broken beyond repair, and you are entirely not alone in this fight. The dark fog is finally lifting forever, and your bright future is entirely yours to proudly claim today. The narcissist is permanently stuck exactly where they are, doomed to repeat the same tragic cycle until the day they die. But you get to continuously evolve. You get to slowly rediscover your forgotten passions, laugh loudly with genuine joy, and build authentic, extremely safe relationships. You get to finally experience the quiet, profoundly beautiful peace of a truly normal, entirely drama-free, deeply happy life. Let them fully realize the massive magnitude of their devastating loss. Let them sit alone in the cold, empty house they aggressively burn down with their own toxic hands. You do not need to seek any petty revenge. Your total, profoundly unbothered absence is the most devastating punishment they could ever possibly receive. You moving on gracefully and happily is their absolute ultimate, deeply humiliating, permanent defeat. You managed to walk through absolute hell and somehow returned with your beautiful soul fully intact. They truly thought they broke you. They were perfectly confident that you would never survive their calculated cruelty. But you finally did. Now they must helplessly face the ultimate, intensely chilling truth totally alone. They broke themselves trying to break the absolutely wrong person.